Welcome everybody, I am Ed Cruz and this is the last lesson, and this is going to be episode 15, and we're going to talk a little bit about shifting. Shifting, how we do shifting is basically based on 50-50 concept. I'm not going to go into the different variations of how other styles may do shifting. I do shifting 50-50, and basically there's a reason I do it, and that's all that matters. So what we're going to focus on is the common qualms or problems that people have when doing shifting. And a lot of the times when you do your shift, you have the common problem I would say is once you get the idea of how to shift or the basic instruction of how to shift, the issue that comes in is like more often than not, people end up cheating, leaning slightly back to the back of the heel. And if you look at this looks like it's an okay shift, but from here my center of gravity is actually leaning to the back. So let's talk a little bit about little fixes and little problems that may arise from this, and the overall main solution to deal with that when working on the shift. Now, as I've always stated, that we will always work our way from forward to back. Well, let me jump into that. I actually want to save that for later on. But so what do we have as far as shifting issues? When we have shifting issues, right? First of all, when we talk about the arm, we say elbow leads the motion to do the punches. Well, when we talk about the lower part of our structure, the knees actually lead the motion to that. So 9 times out of 10, good chunk of percentage of time, people will shift and they'll use their waist to generate that momentum, because they don't really, it's not that they're trying to do it wrong, but they don't really understand, just like with the punch, how the elbow leads the motion or how the knees actually lead the motion to control and stabilize your shifting motion, right? So I would suggest first, if you've got the concept of basic shifting like this, right? You've got the concept of basic shifting, individualize that motion first. Like if I'm standing here and I'm like, okay, knees lead the motion. What exactly does that mean, knees lead the motion? If I go like this is just me turning my leg and it's not really doing anything. What I do is I use this right leg, right, to stabilize stabilize the turning point. And I'm actually, see how I'm kind of like feeling my knee first? My knee first, I was like, what exactly does the knee feel like? Because you need to know the feeling when you're doing certain things. You may hear that knees lead the motion, but the meaning of that is nothing to you, because it's just like you hear it, but it goes in one ear out the other. So a lot of times when I tell students, it's like, try to go for the feel. Don't try to think of like too much intellectually what that means. If I see knees lead the motion, what can I do to feel, okay, this is the knee, this is the knee. That's my hip, right? I'm turning it with my hip now, and then this is the knee, and this is my ankle. So play around with that. And there's something that's so good about practice is when you practice, you get the opportunity to be like, don't fear doing it wrong. There's no such thing as bad wrong, other than hurting yourself. But fear not trying to experiment and trying to get to the point of like, okay, what exactly does that full meaning actually do? So in this situation where you're holding yourself in place, you're holding your center of gravity in place, and you simply start turning with just one knee. Notice I'm just trying to feel like, okay, see I'm turning it? Be careful, don't press on the ground, otherwise you're gonna hurt your knee. You wanna, okay, my knee turns it. Oh, wait, I kind of feel that. Knee turns it, okay? So play around with that first. Be careful as far as like putting weight and pressure on it. You gotta stay even in order to do it. You're like, I can't turn it because your center of gravity is probably leaning. So if you have to lean back maybe a little bit to be like, okay, how do I do this first? You play around with it, and the main thing is make sure you do it right so you don't end up hurting yourself, okay? You don't try to force anything in Wing Chun and go along with it and start turning the knee. So right there, you need the feel. So if you're feeling the shift of the waist, right? Shifting of the waist, this is one way to help you understand, okay, the knees is actually leading it. Another problem that comes about when you're shifting is everyone thinks like when you shift, it's momentum based. I'm using my momentum, right, to turn one way or another. But in actuality, if you think about it, just how I step forward, it's not one leg only doing the motion. So when I shift with my knee, right, when I shift, or I turn, it's not just this leg doing its motion. This uses, not only does this function as a support, but this actually in turn turns, right? If your butt's tucked in and turn, you'll feel like almost like a cramping in of here. But what you want to do is feel this motion support this motion to create that turn motion. See? It's not just one leg turn and then the knee only does its motion like this. No, two legs at Ichikima using this knee and this knee to create that shift motion. This knee and this knee to create that shift motion. Almost at the same time, kind of like I step, I'm pushing and I'm pushing one way and I'm stepping the other, pushing one way and I step with the other. So same thing as well as this. I'm supporting with this leg and turning, and this turn in turn leads to this. Now, don't mistake it. A lot of times people think, oh, you're stepping and pushing. No, it's happening both at the same time. I'm not push with one knee and then turn with the other one. Everything in Wing Chun happens, there's one motion to another, it chains in with the other one. So this turn leads to this turn, and they're connected. It's not one then the other, okay? So a little bit, some kind of tips to help you along the way to understand, oh, maybe it is my knee. My knee here is being used to help me overall to make that shift occur. Another thing, okay? So what else? What else is there? If we're talking about, you know, common mistakes that that can come about when you're doing the shift. The overall fix really is because you lack the awareness of your center of gravity, right? Like if I was going like this and I was turning, see I'm trying to turn, I don't know that I'm leaning forward, right? And when you're shifting and you're struggling and it looks like you're shifting okay, but you're shifting off the back of your heel, but the weight's slightly back, you don't know what your vertical is doing. So everything helps. So how do you help yourself? A lot of times when people have their hands up here, it's just there. And it's not really functioning what you want to do. So in the Yichikimi Ma, when this motion, you have this motion here, the shoulders stretch and the elbows sink and the head pulls up. By having that tension, and because a lot of times people just turn, right? And they forget about this upper tension. By having this tension, this will help remind you to make sure you have that sit motion. And then by focusing on that, you'll realize by having that good Yichikimi Ma in the very beginning, making the shift occur will be an easier process. Now I gave you a breakdown as far as feeling the knee and then trying to get the motion down. But the key core, how we always say, is we go back, take a step back, see what the source is that leads to this. Because what is turning? Turning is nothing more than having a solid Yichikimi Ma, right? So if you're Yichikimi Ma, you can't tell you're leaning forward, back. You can't even maintain something straight without your butt sticking out. Guess what? If this suffers even more, your shifting process. So in order to fix that, right, use this process, use the top hands, because this is often forgotten. Have here, you feel the stretch, and then sit, and then try thinking to yourself, okay, now use the knees and try to shift, and you'll notice a vast, huge improvement over it, as opposed to trying to nitpick little details in the motion that may be causing the problems. I'm not saying that you don't have to look at those things, but if you deal with a better center of gravity, having a better vertical in place, that'll make everything else as far as the minor fixes that you need to do work even better, okay? Another last tip I want to give regarding the shift is when you shift, right? People just kind of shift like windshield wiper style. They have this in place and I'm shifting here, here, here. Everything that you do requires a target. So even in shifting, if you're requiring a target, right? It kind of functions, if I'm looking here, here's my target. Now I have a new goal here, there's my target. Here's my new goal here, there's my target. Have a goal, don't just generally do a windshield wiper motion and hope everything's in place, right? You actually have to have two functions as far as I'm going here, and then now my two structures, my leg, body, and arms, actually three structures, all know exactly what my goal is. My next one, goal, right? All right, so as you can see, there's a lot of work to be done to get the shift correctly, okay? Shifting basically is your ability to say, first, okay, I think I can maintain my center of gravity stationary. The next stage of shifting is, can I do my center of gravity or control my center of gravity in motion, okay? Hopefully these little tips can help you out. And just try to remember, the main source is the most important thing. Fix that, everything else will fall into play, okay?